What is up, guys? This is Jonathan Concepcion, and today I wanted to update you guys on Dungeon of Greed's overall inventory system, equipment, and player UI. I've actually, I clearly missed my last devlog deadline. This is mainly due to me and my family getting the coronavirus, in which we have fully recovered as of yesterday. Of course, being sick made everything a lot harder to do, but at least now we are back on track. So, without further ado, let's get started. So I got around to fixing the size of rooms to actually be able to scale 20 by 20 without having the edges crop off and allowing you to go outside the map. That was a minor issue, but it did take some time to actually get done. The biggest core mechanic of looting and equipping is completely different from 1-Bit Adventure. So as far as the player's inventory, I've made it more condensed, but also allow equipping items to be on the same screen as the inventory system. So essentially, tapping equipment will allow you to equip it, while tapping items will allow you to do whatever that item is intended to do. In Greed, you can now visually see your equipment on your character as well as on other players, except for the amulet and shoes, which would otherwise be really not super essential, but to see actually visually, it's kind of like just a single pixel or two. And since the feet are basically like the pants, you get the whole point. We're dealing with only 8 pixels by 8 pixels. So there was a whole lot of future-proofing scripts done for the past few weeks, which has also taken up a lot of my time compared to 1-Bit Adventure. I mean, this has actually been a lot quicker development. For the equipment system took about like a solid 2 months. For 1-Bit Adventure. Greed, we're taking only 2 weeks to actually get equipment in the game as well as the stats being on it, so which is pretty amazing. With future-proofing, this essentially means that I've made custom classes that can define new items without hard coding, so everything is visually there. I can just type whatever I want and it's in the game, like instantly in the game. So this is going to make it a lot easier for me to add new equipment and new items without the hassle of going in and tweaking the lines of codes to say this should be this and yada yada yada. I've also been working on the bomb item as a test for casting, as if you're casting a spell, but also as sprite particles for spawning particles. This will eventually work on opening up secret rooms, so if there's a cracked wall, you throw a bomb on it and bam, it opens it up, you can access a secret room. Everything as far as items are intertwined with collecting and also buying it off a shop, which is also like on a table with the currency, and finding certain items that are combined into a total amount. Since in Greed, inventories will have limits, I do plan to have a way to drop items in the future, which will drop, like, let's say a pouch of items together on the ground, which you will be able to walk over them and decide what items you want to pick up. Kind of like a Genshin Impact, which I have totally not been addicted to and spent the last 100 hours playing while rocking my daughter to sleep. Moving on, I actually had to rethink the AI pathfinding. I thought AI pathfinding would be done in one frame, but it turns out math takes time and it can take several frames to decide a path for each enemy. And so in order to make sure overlapping doesn't occur on accident, the pathfinding queues before allowing other enemies to make their moves. Although this would mean that an extreme scenario of like 20 plus enemies would mean you would have to wait for each enemy to get done with their pathfinding, I actually felt there was no lag, which is good because that would mean that you can't walk into a space that an enemy would end up walking into. And yeah, in 1-Bit Adventure, you already kind of know what happens. Of course, not all enemies are constantly chasing the player, so this sort of lag that I am explaining will likely not occur at all. The enemy spawn system has a unique overhaul to allow rooms to spawn groups of specific enemies, which is also determined by the dungeon's level. I think I got a lot of this inspiration from RPG Maker and the way they do their categorized enemies to be in groups, which I felt like that was the best way to make different dungeon biomes have specific groups of enemies that spawn in rooms. Of course, you can expect more different types of enemies to have more unique traits later on in development, as well as when I do add bosses. Different mathematic formulas have been added to equipment to allow it to level up, and also to have the player XP have a scaling factor. I do plan on doing a mix of Dark Souls leveling skill points with traits tied to what you're capable of doing and 1-bit's raw stat building. A greater example of this, you can choose to increase your strength, which will allow you to use stronger weapons, or you can increase your base damage, which affects your base stats instead of equipments. So this will allow for more build variety and allow you to decide how you want to build your characters in different ways versus just going out and making 1000% damage builds, because that's what exactly happened in 1-Bit Adventure. And lastly, the player UI is simple for now. I do plan on making a big overhaul on how the UI is displayed on screen, but for now it is really simplified, with the XP being on the bottom, the core health and stuff like that on the top left. So that pretty much wraps it up for this video. For the next devlog, we will be working on getting dungeon levels to loop. So finding the exit will allow you to enter a newly generated dungeon and allow you to continue looting. We can't also have a dungeon of greed without things to get greedy. So we'll add different sorts of treasures that you can collect throughout your dungeons and be able to use those treasures to become more powerful in your gear. So this is where the greed mechanic comes in, and where shadow creatures will end up being a thing. This will be a lot on my plate for the next devlog, but hopefully everything goes out truly as planned. I truly am excited to see Dungeon of Greed in its final form, and hope you guys are enjoying these devlogs. Definitely, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you guys later.